opportunity. And with that, I have the pleasure of introducing Dan Pennington. Many of you who have attended Plenary have met and heard Dan speak before. He is the CEO of LAWPRO. He's held that role as well as president since 2018. He's a writer, he's a blogger, he's a speaker, he's a technology guy, as well as managing our insurer. He's been a great friend to FOLA. And with that, I introduce Dan.
We'll just get set up with the tech here. Bear with us 1 second. Forward, big button, forward. All right. I'm going to get off and wander around. I might come back and sit at one of your tables, get real close. Great to be here. Great to see a lot of familiar faces and some new ones. A lot of great conversations and learning and sharing of ideas from coming to Plenary over the years. So glad to be back. Here to give you the usual LAWPRO update on what's going on at LAWPRO, talk about some claims trends that we're seeing, the new program changes for next year, and highlight some of the Practice Pro resources and touch upon fraud, which continues to be a big issue for us. First up, overall claims trends. In 2023, we hit 3,272 new claims. That's an all-time high for us, leaving us overall with 5,080 files open at the end of the year. A large part of the increase over that time is an increase in the number of lawyers. We've added roughly 2.5% of insureds by insured count over the year, and we see roughly 100 claims per 1,000 insureds in a typical year, and that's remained fairly constant. So that's something we watch very closely. You can see a bit of an up and down during the pandemic. We saw a big drop in claims coming in. The courts were closed, real estate shut down. The courts have been slower to come off, real estate took off, slowed down. So we're kind of finding a new equilibrium, a bounce back, I think, and some of the claims that were put on hold or held aside during the pandemic are now coming forward. The really big ones that were stuck in the litigation process waiting to go to court, they're now coming back on stream. So we saw some of our bigger claims pushed down the road, and we'll come back to that now. Overall, we're seeing more claims that cost us a higher amount of money. On the graph is the number of claims during those different time frames that were over $100,000. So for the most recent 2017, 2021, 261 claims were over $100,000. Lots of tiny ones. It's the bigger ones that add up on the dollars front. And you can see what we call our high value claims above $750,000 up to the $1 million cap on the LAWPRO policy. In 2022, we saw 7 of those large claims cost us $6.1 million. In 2023, we saw 13 that cost us $11.6. We see a variation, 5 to 15 larger claims that hit the limits in any given year. Part of that is the bigger matters moving forward again through the courts. Part of that is more activity out there. In terms of the kinds of mistakes we're seeing, a lot of the usual trends that we've seen before continue with some variations. Communications, just miscommunication, poor communication, no communication are still about a quarter of our errors. Time management typically has been 15 to 20% of our errors. Because litigation slowed down during the pandemic, we saw far fewer time-related claims. Those are starting to come back, and in particular, the court is flushing out almost 100,000 files that are court matters. They're well along through that process. We've seen in round numbers, 200 claims come into us on matters that the court has dismissed. So a bump there for us this year. Thankfully, the bump was lower than we thought or expected it could be. We're doing our best to clean up or repair those dismissals, so encouraging people to keep their matters moving and moving on. There's a toolkit for admin dismissals on our website. The other interesting one, inadequate investigation or discovery of fact, is now up to more than a quarter of our claims. When I started at LAWPRO, it was only about 10%. And I think that's a symptom of people, lawyers not taking the time to talk to the client, understand the matter, give direct advice to the client on the specifics of their matter. And I think that's going up because we're moving faster, we're communicating by text and email and Zoom, and clients want a quick answer and they want to keep the cost down. So that's a concern, and we've got resources helping lawyers miss out on that. We'll come back to fraud. In terms of long-term trends by area of law, you can see litigation has dropped, real estate has gone up. That's for 2023. Long-standing increase in wills and estates claim on both the count and the cost front. And that's just a reflection of the changing demographics as the baby boomers move through and their estates are handled. And also the fact that real estate is typically the biggest asset in any estate, and the bigger dollars are there. So that's something we're watching. And the others kind of more or less flat, family up a bit over time as well. In terms of the handling of claims, ultimately only 11% of the 3,000 odd claims that we would open on any given year would result in an indemnity payment. That is a finding that the lawyer was negligent and some kind of indemnity payout. We take a principled approach to handling claims. If a lawyer clearly made a mistake that caused damages to a client, we will do our best to repair it, to reduce the damages, settle with the client, and move on. If it's a fee dispute or there is truly no negligence there, or maybe there was no negligence, but ultimately, maybe there was negligence, but ultimately no damages to the client, we don't settle out or pay those. So 34% are closed without any payment whatsoever, and those are often fee disputes or client unhappy with the result. 55% of our claims involve defense costs. That is hiring outside counsel for handling litigation or giving us advice on coverage issues. When I started at LawPro, these numbers were 40, 40, 20. So we are seeing more matters that are more complex. I think one of the big benefits that LawPro provides to you is that on those matters where there is a dispute, or we go in and we see a potential claim but do something to fix it, what we call a repair, and that ultimately avoids an indemnity payment, that ultimately keeps claims costs down, which is good for us and good for you. And quite frequently, given the way we handle things, if we do various kinds of repairs, it doesn't trigger a deductible or a claims history levy surcharge for the client if the claim was avoided in many circumstances. So that's one of the huge benefits that LawPro offers the profession. A commercial insurer would not do that. Let's talk about the 2025 program changes very, very quickly. There's some there you go. Changes to no change, good news, no change to the base premium. It's going to continue on at $3,250 despite the increased costs of claims. We've done well in the stock market. We actually use our investment income to support and keep premiums as low as possible. When we underwrite, we only collect from premiums about 90 cents on the dollar for what we pay out in claims. We make up that difference with investment income. So I'll talk about the SEPADA coverage, the funds transfer exclusion. For administrative purposes, we're eliminating the quarterly payment option this year, so lump sum or monthly. We continue to, although we bill and invoice lawyers individually for LawPro coverage, we are continuing to facilitate the payment of premiums at the firm level, because loads and loads of firms pay directly, and it's helpful administratively, I know, for all of you, and likewise for us. Very proud to put this graph up on the wall. Shows you that the premium today is lower than it was 10, 12 years ago, and I challenge you to talk about or find one other service or product where you're paying less than you did 10 years for it. That's a testimony to the work of all the LawPro staff and the strength of the LawPro program. If that $5,600 premium that was charged way back when LawPro was started was charged today, it would be about $11,000. So we think a very reasonable premium for the profession. Loads of lawyers, whether they're part-time, restricted area of practice, all criminal or immigration, or new lawyers who start out, we see they have fewer claims over their first 5 years of practice, so they get a 50, 40, 30, 20% discount, over the first 4 years of practice. Huge numbers of lawyers get that discount, and 25% of our insureds take advantage of our risk management credit, take an approved CLE course. You get $50, take 2 of them, you get $100 off your premium on an annual basis. So we have a huge number of lawyers that actually pay far less than the $3,250. SEPADA coverage, the new regulator of patent and trademark agents in Canada now is requiring their members to have insurance that meets certain minimal requirements. LawPro largely matched those. It didn't match in terms of covering for international coverage in a manner that sees us respond to the changing nature of practice, the changing needs of our insureds. We've stepped up to the plate to offer, as an extra endorsement for SEPADA members, coverage that meets the SEPADA requirements, and that will be an extra $2,000 a year for that endorsement. So helps them meet their needs. It means they don't need 2 policies. So pleased to be offering that starting next year. We are seeing more and more lawyers use what we call funds transfer tools. So these are the tools that are used often in conjunction with software, in particular in the real estate area, to facilitate the payment of funds from the lawyer to the other side, disperse mortgage payouts, other payouts as well. Our concern with those is that the money is going out of a lawyer's trust account through a conduit that isn't perhaps a regulated bank. It's not a trust account. The terms of use of some of those products put 100% of the liability for the use of that product on a lawyer. And that's not an exposure that we were wanting to see hit our program. If one of those funds transfer tools went down for a day or a week, and there were hundreds or thousands of real estate transfers delayed or prevented, that would be a huge loss on the program. So we've introduced a new exclusion that says we will not cover various aspects of the use of those tools. We will still cover, for example, if the lawyer punches in the wrong bank account number and the money goes off to the wrong place, and some of these tools will help prevent that. That's a lawyer negligence mistake and not something that was a failure of the tool itself, so that still would be covered. Wanted to talk about social engineering, and I've done this in more detail for all of you on behalf, and I just wanted to make the point that we continue to see lawyers and law firm staff duped, often on phishing messages. A message comes to them saying, look at this picture, or your account's been compromised, please reset your password. And when you do that, it's a fake message. It'll be made to look like it's coming from Amazon or your bank or somebody you know, and ultimately it's designed to trick the person into giving their password to fraudsters, who then will sit there and watch the emails going back and forth. And on the day of closing, they'll send a message that looks like a real message from the lawyer on the other side, whoever's account they've broken into, saying, don't send the money here, send the money there instead. And there'll be neat excuses like, oh, I'm getting a higher interest rate over at this bank, please send the money there so I can invest it in. They're really sophisticated and will be designed to trick lawyers and law firm staff. So we've introduced, to help prevent very serious losses to the program, we've introduced a new sublimit of $250,000 if you fall for one of those frauds. But if you take a few steps, you get up to $1 million in coverage. And those steps are making sure that your retainer arrangement clearly specifies at the start the client is going to send or receive money to you via a particular bank account or check or particular matter. It contains an instruction to the client. Under no circumstances are you to accept an instruction from me in terms of changing where you send money unless there's some kind of further conversation. And if there is any change, you're required to have a direct conversation or meet in person with the client. And that, by doing those things, you prevent somebody from being duped, sending the money to the wrong place. So that's what we call our Call Before Your Click campaign. And we're lots of resources in pushing lawyers to be more aware of that. And Sophia and Ray Leclerc are out on the road and have been out to a number of your associations, and I make the offer. They're more than willing to come out and do that presentation to get that important message out to your members. Loads of content ongoing and posted up to address the different areas of concern, resources, helpful practical technology advice, going back to the comments earlier that are available at Practice Pro. The increased outreach we've done coming out of the pandemic is resulting in more phone calls to us. We got a wide variety of phone calls. The LAWPRO policy, the rules of conduct, oblige lawyers to report a claim in the event they see circumstances where they know there's a claim or potential circumstances that could lead to a claim. And those potential circumstances can lead to a claim are the best area for us to help or step in potentially and help give the lawyer some direction on the steps that can be taken to avoid a claim or lessen the risk of a claim, or if one happens, to lessen the damages that might come out of it. The questions coming to us are wide and varied. Some of them include a strong rules of professional conduct or ethics aspect. We send those calls, ask them to talk to the Law Society as well. Some of them are people being very cautious, and in that situation we say, thanks, we don't see a potential claim or a real claim here. Thanks for chatting this through. We won't open a claim file at this time. So a good resource there for people that have questions. The questions coming into us are mirroring the different areas of practice, so it's nice to see we're reaching the different segments of practice. One of the biggest areas we've seen, interestingly enough, there's a lot of changes at firms, people leaving firms. We've seen a good bump in calls, same on the administrative dismissal front, where an associate or junior, even partner, has left a firm and it's not clear who handled the file, took the file, who was following up on the file. We're seeing far too many of those. So better to be really clear if somebody's leaving, who's taking a file, who's following up on it and all. And we're also seeing a good reflection of the mix of claims we seek in terms of the calls that are coming in, but in particular further to our admin dismissal and our fraud outreach, a good chunk of the calls coming in are lawyers who have or are in the middle of a fraud or are suspicious they're potentially being duped. And interestingly, there is quite often we see that little spidey sense is happening, but there's just a little reluctance to go across the finish line and declare it a fraud or challenge the client or end the real estate deal. And we're pleased to be able to have that conversation, to help the lawyer have the conversations with the client, take the steps they need to do to avoid a claim. And we know that we are helping lawyers avoid claims from those conversations, which is great. Plugged these before, I'll mention them again. On our website, we have claims fact sheets for the different 12 different major areas of law. They're really helpful because they give you the profile of the types of errors, but they also give you a sense of the scenarios in different areas of law that lead to claims. So they're a great resource. Please consider spreading them around. We've worked through the pandemic. This started, and we're continuing it in partnership with the TLA to do online free CPD programs on many different topics. You can see them on the screen there. The What They Didn't Teach You in Law School marketing one happened today. 1,200 people registered for that. So really great for us to be able to reach out with some LawPro focused content on claims prevention in the different areas. The great thing about these programs is they are free. I won't get caught by a spam filter by saying that here. They're free, and they also all qualify for Law Society professionalism hours, and they get you a $50 LawPro risk management credit. So I encourage people to take up those, especially as we come to the end of the year and people are scrambling to meet their CPD requirements. And again, a reminder, we're more than happy to come out to local law associations to do seminars. So please contact us if you're interested in doing that. We're also next year looking at launching a bit of a roadshow, which would see us do a half-day program in various locations around the province, which would include some LawPro claims prevention content, but also some content I know on technology, talk about AI and some of the other hot topics that are out there. So please watch for that coming up. That's all the formal comments. Happy to address questions if there are any.
Sorry. This is kind of a weird question, but it just came to my attention yesterday, so I thought I'd ask you since you're here. There was a recent case in family law out of Toronto in which one lawyer followed the practice directions with regard to the spacing in the affidavits and the number of pages, and one lawyer did not. And the judge figured that out because he downloaded the documents, put it into Word, and figured out that one lawyer used 2.0 spacing, one lawyer used 1.5, which gave that cheating lawyer an extra 5,000 words, which he thought was very unfair to the clients. And the lawyer that followed the rules, actually her client ended up winning the case, and so there was some cost. What the judge did was he told that other lawyer to come back the next week with their own lawyer because he was considering ordering costs against the lawyer personally for cheating with the practice direction rules and giving their client an advantage. When the reason I'm asking is this is because the case is reported is the second part of that, where the lawyer came back in was a LawPro lawyer, and I just know because I know who the LawPro lawyer is. Would that have triggered, to have that kind of LawPro help, would that have triggered a deductible or an increase in premiums just for the sake of going to court because the judge said bring them?
I don't know enough about the specific circumstance of the case to know if that would trigger a deductible or not. So I can't comment on that. And depending on the circumstances where there are personal costs ordered against a lawyer, there are some circumstances where we will cover that and some where we won't. There is some more specific information on how that scenario is handled on our website, I know.
Okay, thank you.
David Newsco, Bruce Law Association. Is LawPro going to be reaching out and working with the conveyancing software companies to help them integrate, if they want to, the sort of updated terms into their default engagement letters that real estate lawyers use when they use their conveyancing software?
Yes, we did converse with some of them. I can't say we converse with all of them. There's been several new ones pop up in the last 6 to 12 months, but no, we actively dialogue with them. I know we also had conversations with some of them on how they integrate, or the best way to integrate the new client ID checks when that needs to happen. So. All right, seeing no more hands, thanks everybody. Look forward to seeing you for the rest of the day and at the dinner tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. It's always enlightening to learn how we're going to transition from lawyer to defendant. All joking aside, I wanted to thank you for your continued support of FOLA and for fostering an environment at LAWPRO where lawyers can feel comfortable and safe to reach out when we have done the very human thing of making a mistake and not making us feel like complete degenerates. So thank you very much. My limited experience with your agency has been delightful. So thanks again.